You're listening to Otto's Powerhouse. You're listening to Otto's Powerhouse.
Motherfuckers, motherfuckerettes, welcome to another episode of Pato's Powerhouse. This episode is a little special because it marks the 5th anniversary of Cursory Overload, where K-Dog and I get together and talk all kinds of nonsense and incoherent shit that only two middle-aged 9-year-olds can come up with. Let me take you back on a journey, on a trip, back to December 2017. Back then, when I was going through a very dark time, my friend K-Dog came with the crazy idea that we should start a podcast. In all reality, K-Dog had been talking about podcasts since 2009, 2010, but the technology back then was very scary for some of us, so we just would hear him out and be like, yeah, well, that'd be cool, but that's about as far as it went. Fast forward to 2017, things got easier, point and click kind of stuff, and we were talking about doing a podcast, and I was, like I said, in a very dark place, and podcasting was something that helped me get through what I was going through, which I had lost my father a few months prior in September. So, we took the plunge. And I remember we had like this thing. We were looking for platforms where to, distribute our podcast. And I found Spreaker, which I continue to use to this day, and is what we use. And I'm not getting a dime from them. If anything, I pay them, right? So anyway, what I'm saying, if I'm saying anything, is that I found Spreaker and I signed up for their free account back then, which they gives you like 15 minutes to podcast. And K-Dog was supposed to do the same, because the original thing, before we got together and did Cursory Overload, he was supposed to do his homework and find a platform, and then we were going to talk about it and then decide which one we were going to go with. Well, what had happened was that motherfucker didn't do his homework and never did the solo podcast, because, well, as I found out as we started podcasting, for someone that talked a lot of shit around work, motherfucker was shy. We've come a long way now. We sit down behind those microphones and talk all kinds of shit and not care who hears it, who doesn't hear it, what relative thinks of this or what relative thinks of that, which at the beginning I think that was a big problem. Because, he would like hold back, like, I can't say this shit because, well, I might offend my third cousin twice removed, blah, 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 back in whatever. All right. So what I'm saying, originally, I wasn't even going to be behind the microphones. This is how things have changed in 5 years. Even though I was already disillusioned with religion, I still went to church, and I didn't really want to be behind the microphones talking shit because, Jeebus watching me and shit like that. I didn't want that. So I was only going to ghostwrite material. And that's why my original podcast was under Pato the Ghostwriter Show. Excuse me, I've been sick. That's why we haven't podcasted in almost 2 months or a month. I've lost track of time. But this cough there's lingering, refuses to go. But what I'm saying now, getting back to the story, is that I wasn't going to podcast because I was just going to ghostwrite material for this fucker to put out there in Cursory Overload. But it happened differently. I did my homework. I did my first podcast as Pato the Ghostwriter Show because that's how it got named by Spreaker, because I just put in the information. I was like Pato, and at the same time, there was this shyness where, we wanted to keep anonymous. in a certain way. That's why we used our nicknames like Pato and K-Dog. And I've shared in other podcasts how I got my nickname of Pato, and well, K-Dog, we just call him K-Dog because, well, the initial for his last name, and hey, what up, dog, top like something like that. But anyway, and me obviously because Pato, because it started as Duck, but it turned to Pato because some lighter skinned folks have to bring out the fact that, well, Duck is Latino, so let's call him Mr. Pato. I'm just saying, if I'm saying anything. But anyway, anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, I started, and the first podcast, which I deleted because, like I said, we had issues. Dude was shy on the mic at first, and I had my issues with religiosity and my creativity killer at home. Definitely, that's another thing. In order to keep the peace, I was like, oh, fine. I deleted a lot of shit that, in retrospect, I wish I hadn't, because the first podcast I recorded was a rant. Something that happened at a break room in a place I used to work at. It was basically a story. Someone took the last bit of coffee and didn't make a new pot. And if you were at work, you know that there's this unwritten rule that if you take the last bit of coffee, you make a new pot. It doesn't take but a few minutes, maybe if that, to throw away the filter with the old grounds and put a new filter, open up a little bag, put the fucking grounds in there, press a button, and make coffee. I mean, if your system's set up like that. If you're not, maybe you gotta go fetch water, put it in the machine. Regardless, that's the unwritten rule. You take the last cup of coffee, make a new pot, be courteous. But anyway, it was a cold night and we were all waiting to get our coffee, and the person in front of me took the last bit of coffee and just put the pot back and walked away. And as he walked away, he glanced at us and gave us that look like, I got mine, bitches, see ya. So of course I was like, that motherfucker. And I must have used the word motherfucker so many times that night, and during the podcast too. I used that word so eloquently that I think Sam Jackson would have been proud. Well, it's been 5 years. It's hard to believe. Hopefully sometime this week we'll get together and we're going to go over that. I'm going to see if I can put a montage, of different episodes from the different years. And then we'll just going to sit there, reminisce and talk and celebrate 5 years of basically the Podcast Shack, 5 years of Pato's Powerhouse, and of course 5 years of cursory motherfucking overload. Well, that's what we've been up to. Like I said, we haven't been doing much except doing what we normally do, because we're the two hardest working motherfuckers on this rock, and haven't had the chance to podcast because we've been recovering from flu bugs. People sharing the fucking flu. You know what? One thing I hate is when you walk up to someone and you see them blowing their nose and they got the sniffles and you're like, are you sick? And the first thing they tell you, oh, no, it's allergies. Yeah, well, later on, you're suffering from their allergies too. So if you got allergies like that, keep them to yourself. Another thing that I've noticed is, a lot of people are divided about this shit, about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Well, I don't give a fuck what other people say. I'm going to speak from personal experience. During the height of the pandemic, when we were all forced to wear masks, I don't remember having to spend money on Dayquil, NyQuil, or catching the flu. And yes, I got the Moderna shot originally, so that was for COVID. But the regular flu and regular colds during the time that we were all wearing masks, I do not recall catching a cold or catching the flu. It wasn't until now that everything's supposed to be somewhat normal and we all took off our masks, and here I am, still with this fucking cough that refuses to go away. Now, if you'll excuse me, I got a cough. There we go. I don't know, I might edit it out, I might just leave it in just to be a dick. Anyway, motherfuckerettes, thank you for hanging out with me for this past few minutes. Like I said, we're celebrating 5 years of putting out nonsense in the interwebs because, well, we feel there's not enough nonsense out there. So thank you for sticking around. Really warms my heart. Till next time, live each day like it's your last one, because it very well could be. Go do some fun stuff. I don't know what that is. Everybody has a different idea of what fun is, so I'll leave that up to you. Have fun, stay out of trouble, or don't get caught, whichever applies. Till next time, see ya.
You're listening to Otto's Powerhouse.
Otto's Powerhouse is a Podcast Shack production.